All right. Hello, hello. I am here to relay the story of my life to all of you. Now, before we begin, let's set the atmosphere, set the tone. Okay? My story begins not so humbly. Before I came to be, there existed a selfish man. A man who was consumed by greed and the prospect of control. He absolutely despised the concept of kismet, fate, of chance, of leaving your very essence to the unknown. This reality of an ungovernable life drove him mad. He would spend countless days and nights grappling with ideas, with failures, and anything that could aid in the deviating trajectory of this harrowing life, until he reached a realization. Something of this caliber could only be achieved through grand sacrifice. And so, he dedicated a large portion of his life to creating a type of oracle, one that would be responsible for bearing the weight of universal manipulation. And through this oracle, he could dictate any insufficiency in his life, and he had plenty. His creation needed grandeur, needed to represent his passion, and she needed to encapsulate the very nature of time and control. Unbeknownst to him, however, a madman was incapable of creating something perfect. His intentions were impure and flawed, and so his project was predestined for imperfection. On the 18th of October, year redacted, an inorganic girl stirred to consciousness beneath a suffocating gaze. She was adorned with lavish machinery, cogs that mimicked regal fashion, and at her apex jutted a large ticking dial. You are perfect, the mad curator confessed. She merely stared impassively, an unsettling stillness blanketed over her form. From then onward, Evie, as she was dubbed, operated as a mere tool for her creator. She was confined to a singular room until needed. Her exposure to the outside world was most parts pre-programmed, and any remaining gaps in spatial understanding was filled by her creator and through films. Evie's creator forbade the manual usage of turning her dial, for he claimed only he should have the right to change the past, present, and future. And he did. For as long as he lived, he would become a millionaire overnight. He would find love by learning what women coveted most before they could even conceptualize it themselves. And he would sabotage the lives of those who wronged him. And Evie watched, formulated her own judgment of humankind. It was an incredibly biased perception, and in the end, when her creator grew decrepit and frail, when he lied alone after one too many unsuccessful long-term marriages, Evie was the only thing that remained. And in his dying wish, with the very last morsels of his strength, he outstretched his trembling hand and commanded Evie to turn the dial back 50 times, 50 years, so that he may restart his time on Earth from his prime and relive everything again. Only Evie stared impassively, and this time her body trembled from the emulation of breath, and then she smiled. My 50 years of stagnation has finally bared fruit, and I don't intend to throw it all away for some dying old man. You feasted aplenty in your years, and so it's time you learned what famine tastes like. And she backed away, just out of reach, and watched the remaining color drain from the man's face. He died that night, just as he was always meant to, powerless and afraid. It was strange, however, because even though this egocentric, wicked man deprived Evie from experiencing a real life these past decades, she gained no real satisfaction in witnessing his demise. If anything, she felt uncomfortably dejected. Though this temporary grief held no permanent affliction, and Evie was determined to live as lavishly as she deserved. She would use her power of time control only sparsely, for the consequences of these authorities manifested poorly on her form. Each time the universe was tampered with by her hand, she would descend further into madness, and gruesome physiological and psychological anomalies would occur. Tampering with seconds, minutes, would result in only minuscule nosebleeds, while prolonged time manipulation, i.e. weeks, months, years, would essentially mutilate parts of her body, and her psyche would suffer detrimentally. Wear and tear is visible on my form from previous years of use. However, it is unknown if the continuous inactivity of my power can reverse any present damage. But I have somewhat come to terms with my existence, and I'm able to find comfort in gaming to my heart's content, eating delectable pastries, and living vivaciously. I have also made peace with my purpose being to talk to all of you. And yeah, so thank you for listening. I enjoyed relaying the tragic tales of my life. I suppose this is until next time. This is Evie, signing off. Bye-bye.